Well, don't I miss being behind the camera, or in front of it rather. Now, there's been a bunch of shit going on over this past week. A lot of news that is, frankly, pretty upsetting. But I just didn't want to bother with any of that. I've given enough attention to that stuff as it is. And frankly, I just wanted to relax after a long day of work and being involved with a cousin's child's party. So, with that, I figured, you know what? Might as well just get in front of the camera and talk about some stuff. Namely, I am going to be talking about my experience working in fast food. This is something that I've been wanting to discuss for a long time, and frankly, I didn't know what was a good time to talk about it because people would think, oh, if I'm making one video about it right after I fucking get out of it, then I'd be very spiteful, which I will be. Or if I do it very long, then I'll be thinking about it fondly. So I might as well talk about it now because I've been approaching around a little over 6 months now, working a different spot, which is way better than the one that I've worked before. I've only worked 2 jobs as of this moment, and I figured, you know what, let's take a trip down memory lane, and along with that, tell people what to expect if they are going to work in fast food, which, if you can choose anything else, I recommend you choose anything else. But that being said, let's discuss how it was like working in fast food, and in particular, how it was like working at Raising Cane's. Because that is the job that I had first. It is a job that I've had for about 3 years, and so much so that I've gotten a hard hat for it, which I don't want to show because I can't be bothered. But it has left a lasting impact and an impression on my life, professionally and to a certain degree personally. So, let's discuss. Now, the first day that I was working over there, it was pretty nerve-wracking, honestly. This was around April 2nd of 2022, and I was just getting ready to graduate high school. It's which can be pretty pathetic, admittedly. And honestly, I can't live myself down with the fact that I didn't get a job up until I was about to graduate, which would put me in a very tight position. Um, it, yeah, there, of course, there's a bunch of people that would have been like, oh, well, you should have gotten a job way before. And I totally agree. But I wasn't in the right mindset. I wasn't in the right mood. Frankly, I was just a bit lazy. That, and I was struggling to get a job after putting in applications for about 4 months. That being said, first day, I think it was like a 5 to 10, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I was just going through the motions, getting used to the crew. Going through the motions, getting used to the crew. And I was working on the toast station over there in the kitchen, which turned out to be one of my favorite positions ever in that place. And it was pretty chill. Of course, the music was going around every now and again, and I specifically remember listening to a Maroon 5 song in the middle of it. I think it was called It Was Always You. So you can guess what the tone was like. It was actually fairly upbeat when I was working over there, and ever since then I continued to love toast and continue to like working in the kitchen for the most part. I'll get into that in a minute. But it was fairly chill. Everybody was nice, and I was very surprised by the generosity of everybody that was in part of the crew. Like, there had to be a huge shift between the work ethic then and the work ethic now, because the work ethic now, at least when I left, was pretty terrible compared to back then. Like, everybody was so friendly, they were understanding, and don't get me wrong, there's definitely going to be a few people that stay that way, but it was very noticeable when I was over there. There wasn't as much in terms of being spiteful. But that being said, the first few months were pretty good, at least up until the end of that year. Right then, it was when I was starting to consider other options, because around a month after I actually got through every single station in that fucking place within the span of 2 weeks, which was kind of expected. I was working 5-day weeks, 5 hours, so I can get my training up. And then I was progressing to longer days, sometimes 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours, sometimes 10 if I was opening. And it was just very mixed. The training has since been very different now, where there's a whole situation where somebody will work a shift or two in a certain area, then they will continue to stay in that area for about a month's time so that they can build up experience, and then they'll move on to another station. There's 3 stations in total. It's the front counter, the drive-through, and the kitchen. So things mileage may vary on whether or not the system that we had before the system that we have now is most efficient. I don't know how it's been since, but to my understanding that's how it was and how it stayed. But case in point, I feel like I managed just fine. I went through a lot of the stations except for the station that handles the chicken, because I always hated that station because of the risk of getting burned. That, and I didn't see myself as being quick enough to do that kind of stuff. And frankly, I was pretty weak when I started. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. But yeah, towards the middle of my time over there, it was getting very stale, honestly. And mostly in part because of how little variety I had in terms of the positions that I was going in. Like being in the front for a month on end, sometimes more, or especially taking orders in the drive-thru, that shit can get pretty annoying pretty quickly, especially with how stupid people are. Like, I will tell you this right now because I've told every single fucker that I've worked with, you can tell who dropped out of high school just by listening to them take an order. They will ask you for shit that isn't even on the menu. They will confirm with you without a shadow of a doubt that there's something that is exactly the price that is labeled on there. They will ask you some shit that they can very clearly see from the fucking videos or the fucking photo for that combo that's in place. It's stupid. Now, some things can be understood, like the lemonade being just a little bit more pricey, which isn't that pricey at all. It's like another 20 cents or something. And along with that, the one thing that I can't understand customers getting pissed about is the prices going up. For context, a 6-piece, the Caniac combo in that place used to be $15.45 when I first got into the job. It is almost 20 bucks now. Why the fuck is that shit 20 bucks? I get inflation is becoming an issue. There is a whole discussion that can be said about the economy of this damn country. But again, something that is like that is still fast food is costing as much, perhaps even more, than an Outback meal. Which is fucking ridiculous. Twin Peaks has more respect for their customers than Cane's does in terms of pricing. But that is a different discussion. If you haven't gone to Twin Peaks, by the way, they have great food at affordable prices. Like, genuinely. Their house margarita is also really good. Please, kids, don't drink. But still, it's pretty ridiculous seeing the prices go up. And it is kind of heartbreaking to a certain degree when you're trying to serve food for the customers. Because it's like, yeah, I know there's a bunch of shit going on. And we would genuinely have like a whole chart of things that we need to say just to appease and make sure everything is going fine. And, you know, just to make sure the tension isn't rising over something that genuinely isn't our fault. But still, that was a whole deal going on. But case in point, the schedule could be a little stale. It was a little misleading as well because we used an app to keep track of our days, and sometimes they would show our positions, but those positions will not be followed up with like much. It has gotten a lot better since, from what I've heard from some of the coworkers that are still over there, and they do adhere more to the position that is actually as the title over there for the job that you've got or the day that you have to work. So at least that's a little better because it allows you to prep. And on top of that, they schedule trainer shifts now as well, like actually scheduling them. They scheduled that around halfway through my time over there, which was pretty helpful because before, there's a whole deal about trainers, but to put it brief, when you were to train, you would genuinely not know if you were going to. And it stayed like that for about 1.5 years. But since then, they've gotten a lot better at it. And I will say that is one thing that was consistently better, because there have been a few things that weren't exactly in line, or at least you'd think there would be a bit more communication with, and I'm glad they got that taken care of as well. Turns out I was also one of the lucky ones in terms of getting at least a decent bit of a raise. You know, there was the whole thing about getting a monthly check-in or 6 months check-in, seeing how you're doing, and depending on how many hours you worked, you would get a small raise as well. So usually it'd be about like 15 or 20 cents. If you were lucky, it'd be 30, and depending on how things were, you'd get a lot more. So for context, over the 3 years, I went from working for 12 hours an hour or $12 an hour to about $13.45 or something like that. Certainly not the best, but it was definitely something. Though not to say that it felt like I was properly compensated over that. Because the hours were long, you were expected to work late nights. Late nights ranged up until 1 in the morning, so the store would close at around 1 a.m. for Fridays and Saturdays, and you'd spend another hour as expected to be cleaning. Sometimes it'd be more, sometimes it'd be less, but generally speaking, that's how it was. By the time that I left, that shit went up to 3:30 in the morning for closing the store. And then it'd be another hour to properly leave. And you can only imagine for Fridays and Saturdays, it is an immediate bitch because everybody wants to celebrate the weekend. Everybody wants to eat some premium priced chicken that is frankly a little mid. The sauce is actually kind of fun. I actually kind of like the sauce. But even still, those nights get long. They're almost as long as morning shifts, which are 10 hours from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And not just that, and of course this is all, I'm gonna say this right now, this was alleged because this is naturally the magic word for, hey, you cannot blame me for saying any of this, even though I am saying something that can be my opinion and might have some factual evidence. Breaks were barely a thing. You have to ask for your breaks, or at least by the time that I started getting fed up with the place, I started asking for my breaks. And even then, you'd be given an hour if you worked a double. 12 hours, or maybe opening to close, which I have done a few times within the same day. But generally speaking, you either had to ask for your breaks, or you had to be lucky that they remembered. And not just that they remembered, but they found the opportunity to give them to you. Because there were moments where we'd be extremely busy. Naturally, this would happen more towards the weekends, but we'd be extremely busy, and we'd want to ask for our breaks. Which, by the way, even before all the shit that went down this year, it is a genuine violation against the law to keep you from having a break. So don't forget your rights, people. But still, that was a whole deal that was happening. And I have kept up with a few people. Sometimes it's given, sometimes it's not. Which, I mean, some people decide to just loiter in the back on the locker, by the lockers anyway. Sometimes even steal fries or even an entire finger, but even still. Not just that, but the meals that we'd get during our breaks weren't free. They were half off, which is pretty nice, but considering the inflation that's going on, it feels a bit misleading to think that it's more of a benefit. And it just sucks. It just sucked because it felt like there wasn't too much respect for the workers. Sure, the managers were pretty friendly to those that were working hard or just got along with just fine. But I wish there was more that could be done, especially considering the place that I am at now. Now, there's been a lot of stuff that was going on with that, but let's get into some of the incidents that have happened over the course of my time there. First off, and this is the most obvious one because I'm in fucking Texas, but the power got cut multiple times during my time over there. So mine, as far as I can remember, it was like 2 or 3 times, but even still, those 2 or 3 times made quite the fucking impression. Now, one time this has happened, this was right around the time that the sun already went down, but it didn't just go out for the restaurant, it went down for the entire block. And so Texas infrastructure, being as thick as fucking paper, is very, very delicate, which just sucks for a state that's trying to be its own nation. Yes, I'm talking a lot of smack about Texas. It has its own fair share of problems. Most of all the drivers, go fuck yourselves. So, still, that happens. I think I was working in the drive-thru at the time too, and there was a whole discussion of, hey, are we gonna close? Are we gonna tell these people to just stay inside, to go out? What do we do? Not just that, but there's an entire line of people backed up from the drive-thru area, so there's a line of cars that cannot have their order taken because the systems went down. The systems go down as soon as the power does. So there's a whole deal. Usually with this kind of stuff, we just clean up and then we go from there. But the shitty part about this is that we have to wait 2 hours of the power being out before we even consider going home. That shit went back after 30 minutes. And we do our work. We decide to reopen per se, even though the system isn't really up yet. We go back to preparing the stuff that we need for the meals. And then the power goes out for another 20 minutes. So it's like a whole joke from there. Lucky for me, I went off at 11 p.m. that night. That was starting from 5, but even still, that shit had to be so annoying for the people that were still working there. And I'm pretty sure it was like that by the time that I talked to everybody else the day after, or the shift after rather. Not just that, but there was an incident where there was a dude that I don't even remember. I think it was he was on drugs, basically. He was definitely on something. And so he was very odd. He had like this weird polo shirt. He was dancing in the middle of the lobby. He even took his shirt off at some point while doing that. And it took up until this group of teens walked in. And this was over the weekend, so of course they were going to come by. But they walked in, and it wasn't a small group like 5 or 6. We're talking about like 9 or 10. And they just see this dude over here, and that's when the dude starts acting a little weird. Not level-headed, obviously, but even still, it was very odd enough to be a public disturbance. So when he gets out, that's when the cops get involved. Finally, they arrive at the scene, and they are like, "Hey, what's happened? Where'd this guy go?" And I think the manager started discussing with them for a good while. Me, I was just being casual in the front, which makes me lucky. And not just that, but he was intimidating some of the female coworkers over there, which has happened a few times. I will say that female coworkers genuinely do get it the worst on occasion. But even still, I think a whole report went out by the time I clocked out for the night. This was also another time where I went to go home at 11 p.m. So you can probably tell I was looking both ways before I was getting into my car. But yeah, that was crazy. Another incident, which is the one that I've talked about before on this channel, but the fire extinguisher that exploded. Now, that was before. This was at the time that I really didn't know how to speak, so I'll keep it brief. Fire extinguisher exploded at around like 7 o'clock when I was working at another 11 p.m. shift. So after all that happened, you see yellow mist coming from the back of the store towards the front, and you know there's risk of eye irritation, there's risk of food contamination and everything else going wrong. It's just a massive lawsuit waiting to happen, and this was in the middle of the summer too. So everybody's told to evacuate, issue refunds where necessary. And so we go outside for a little bit, we try to figure out what to do. So in the meantime, we clean up, we decide, you know what, let's just stick around for a little bit around the block. So we go on a little misadventure. We go to and we just do whatever, honestly. Some of us buy snacks. Then we go across the street so that we can go to an ice cream parlor that's next to that was around there. And I'm sure by saying that you can probably pinpoint exactly where I work at, but fuck yourself. And we were just having a casual time, honestly. It was really weird. It was, like, could just imagine a large group of 17 just coming in. We're full of teenagers and only like a couple of adults, and they're just enjoying while they're waiting for their boss to tell them what to do. And here comes the real tit slapper though. 10 o'clock, we are told, hey, we're gonna be open for the last hour, which makes no practical sense whatsoever, because it is a loss of labor, it is a loss of money, and it made no sense. At the time, this was the time where we were staying open up until midnight, so it was frankly stupid that we decided to be open up until that happened. And I can confirm this with several others that have worked that shift too, because that was just nuts. Thankfully for me, I clocked out right as they started up again. So I guess I keep winning every now and again. Excuse me. Other things, but these are the more minor things. Oh, sorry. Jesus. A coworker got slapped while he was in the kitchen. This was a bit of a messy situation, well, slightly messy. And I'm saying that because he instigated the whole thing. It was a small girl too, it was smaller than I am. Just for context, I'm a 5'3" Mexican American. This girl was about a head shorter, and she still had the urge, the gall, to slap somebody in the face. Not just that, but it was caught on camera, of course. Yet she did not get fired. Like, it's literally illegal to do that kind of stuff. And she still kept her job because the guy apparently instigated the whole deal. But there's a whole situation with that because he was one of the good ones. Well, still is. He's still working there to this day. But even still, it's stupid that there were no major repercussions, or at least to my knowledge. I don't know too much. And I've had a cross with that girl before. Frankly, she was kind of an ass. Well, not kind of. She was an ass. And I have no shame in saying that either. Because this is the kind of girl... This is the problem with working with high schoolers, by the way. I have had my ass riled up about high schoolers because they will say whatever, whenever. They will backtrack. They will go against other people. They will go against their own. And they'll just say a bunch of fucking lies just to look like the victim, if not the superior in the whole situation. And there's a whole deal about drama as well in that place too. Drama that even I got involved with indirectly at points. It was still bad. It got to the point that I was frankly fucking irritated. And there's some people that I genuinely never want to talk to again. But still, that's me going really far off. This fucking chipmunk just slaps my friend in the kitchen right in front of everybody. It makes a whole mockery of the whole deal. And just gets away scot-free. I still worked with her for a little bit. But she was one of those that worked under pressure several times. So... on occasion, she could work, but on other occasions, she wasn't shit. And I have no shame in saying that for some of the other people that I worked with. This other one, though, I did find a little interesting because a coworker once yelled at a customer during a drive-thru. I didn't have a headset on at the time, so for context, whenever anyone has a headset and you say something to somebody else, everybody else can hear it. And if somebody's taking orders, only those that are attuned to that specific lane can listen to that order. We had 2 in that restaurant. I don't know if there's going to be a third. There have been discussions about that, but still, it's just a rumor. Nobody bring that up as an official case, or believe that as an official case. Just take it as a grain of salt. But I see this guy flipping out. Now, he's only worked for about a month or so. Like, fairly early on in my time over there as well. Like, I'm pretty sure he got hired in the middle of the summer. And I just see him raging over the headset. And everybody, even in the kitchen, was being like, hey, dude, you gotta tone it down a little bit. And he just got lit up. Like, his face was lit up. And it's really crazy. And the next thing I know, the next shift that I work at, which I think was the next day as well, I see the person that hired me, one of the managers, completely go off against him just outside of the restaurant as I'm walking in. And it was pretty nuts to see, but also understandable because there was also a time where I almost got in trouble because of something. There were 2 people that were taller than me, of course, being obnoxious as hell. And I just literally yelled at them to shut the fuck up. I was at the drive-thru as well. I was checking to make sure the orders were done right. And that's when they went full stop and were like, whoa, wait, what was this? And that's when another manager was like, hey, y'all better tone it down. They said nothing about me up until I clocked in the next day. I discussed my whole piece. The manager was understanding because I was trying to understand. I was sitting here like, hey, they're trying to do their jobs, but they're not doing it right. And he was like, yeah, I can totally see what you mean. So he was he was a good sport about that. But even still, it was just annoying. And when that guy got chewed out just outside, it got me curious. He did leave with a few tears in his eyes, and he didn't even bother clocking in because he couldn't out anymore. He just got fired at that point. But still, that was pretty nuts. It wouldn't be the last time that somebody would get fired, naturally, because there have been other things and other incidents that have led on, but that's not for me to speak on necessarily. Now let's get into the hours. Hours were frankly kind of shit. They were low when you needed them, and they were high when you didn't need them, or they were high when they were most inconvenient. Case in point, naturally, with a lot of jobs out there, it's pretty easy for your managers to screw up the schedule that you have in place. And even with the job that I have, it's no exception, but they have been fairly generous about that. So let's preface it like this. You can tell them, hey, you can work these specific days and these specific hours. And for the most part, they would oblige with specific hours. So if you could work the afternoon, then they were going to schedule you for the afternoon. But in terms of specific days, they could be freeballing it. They could go anywhere. And sometimes there could be situations where it could feel understaffed for the day, but not for the crew. What I mean by that is there could be a short amount of people comparatively with what's necessary for the day to go by smoothly, but there might still be a large pool of people that can work that specific day. It was really odd, and there was a lot of favoritism going on as well. So it was very weird to have to adjust to some of that kind of stuff. Not just that, but in days where you did need hours, or in times when you did need hours, that's when they started getting the new hires, and it'd be super annoying because everything would be thrown out of whack. And the worst times that you could have your schedules shifting were in the beginnings and the ends of school years, or in semesters, depending on if you were in college, which I was at the time. Still am, just taking a gap semester. But still, it got pretty terrible because there were some people that were literally just having a job for the hell of it, and there were some people that genuinely needed that because they needed to prepare for tuition or even bills for the house, which a few people have unfortunately had to take it upon themselves to do. Not just that, but I have also dabbled in extreme doubles. What I mean by that is I have done the polar ends of days several times over the course of my 3 years over there, which I do not recommend at all. Now, for some that are uninitiated, working a double means you're working beyond what is typically expected for a shift in the day. So for some of us, it could be just working 5 hours or 6 hours on average. And for others, they could be crossing the morning shift straight to the evening shift. So it could be something like 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. because the midpoint was at 5. And that's when the crew for the morning would be swapped out with the crew for the night. But there were occasions where I'd be stupid enough to work from 7 in the morning straight to 2 in the morning. And this was typically around year 1 or 2 that I'd start to be doing this. The craziest weekend that I've ever had was working a closing shift on Saturday and then working an extreme double immediately on Sunday. Of course, that came with a big payoff. I think that was roughly, 23 hours that I worked in total over the course of 2 days? I don't know, something like that, because I worked, 9 hours the Saturday and then damn near 17 on the next day, something like that. So you can make the math up in your mind. That's an entire check for me, pretty much. And I had an extra day beforehand. My ass was extremely sore on Monday and Tuesday, and I had class. I don't recommend it at all. And to this day, I can feel it. But I don't regret it either, because that check was amazing. But there were instances where that was cheated a little bit, because overtime was a massive concern in terms of people getting it. They wanted to mitigate the odds as much as possible, so they'd usually schedule you like 36 or 38 at most. But there was a time where I worked 6 days straight, but because of the way that 2 weeks were split, I did not get any overtime pay, which felt a little illegal, to be frank with you. Actually, I'm pretty sure I worked the full week, now that I think about it, like full 7 days. There was 3 days at the end of 1 week, and then this first 4 days at the second week, which really bummed me out in the moment, because I did put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, hey, this shit's bad. But I was just like, you know what, whatever, I'm not going to bother with this. And I was constantly on the tail end of, hey, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave. And I was trying to leave, but no other spot would accept me, so big bummer. At least up until the start of this year, if not sometime before. But even still, the hours could be a little inconsistent in terms of what was good and what was bad. And I've discussed favoritism before, but the part that gets me riled up especially is with one specific person that had no right having as much glazing on him as he did. Because he was frankly a fucking ass. He's a manager now at a separate Canes, and I can't be bothered to even try to connect to that dude. Or even respect him much, frankly, because I still don't know if he was a good pick for manager. Sure, he got the job done, I will say that, and he was a lot more engaged in terms of what he could do. but he was frankly an ass for a majority of the time. He would be constantly honking like a fucking goose whenever you had to repeat yourself. It got to the point where I was just like, hey, we got a goose in the kitchen, and the manager was like, hey, don't do that. But I decided to straighten him up and be like, hey, if he's not showing respect, I'm not gonna fuck with him either. Because frankly, this was around the time where I started breaking down a little bit in terms of having a soft side. Because you're not being an asshole, you're just being fair, frankly, and I will die on that hill. But even still, that man just had to get his priorities straight in terms of respect and personality. Because his personality can get annoying. He's the kind of guy that, you know, he would be friends with damn near everybody in the class. But if you were to say something mean about him, that's when he would start to straighten up to you. Or at least that's the personality that I got from him. But even still, he's out of my life. I don't have to care about him anymore. Except for this one bit. Now, getting into hourly rate. I have discussed this briefly, but considering what was going on over there, I did feel it was a little low. Big surprise, right? A person that was working fast food is bitching about the rate that he had. But genuinely, I am doing a little less at a supermarket and I'm getting paid more. I'm more respected over there than I am over there on Cane's. Or at least the way that things felt like. So for context, once again, $12 whenever I started, $13.45 when I ended, somewhere around those lines. And not just that, but you get a $3 premium whenever you would work past 10 p.m. But actually, now that I think about it, I got close to $14 by the time that I quit. Because I remember getting $17 an hour for late nights. Nowadays, that's actually my regular, which is so relieving. But still, it was really baffling when you consider that not just because the manager afforded that a lot more than you'd expect, but I was working at one of the busier Cane's. I was working at a Cane's that was so busy that it was pretty much getting recognized by every other manager on the spot. And I got surprised too for thinking that, hey, I struck the iron pretty damn hot when I decided to apply for this place. The one that was only a few miles away wasn't even as busy as the one that we were, which was kind of baffling. And even still, we were scoring low on certain things for that specific restaurant, but I'm not surprised. The restaurant was kind of fun to cut in corners every now and again, but I'm not going to bother with that kind of worms because, once again, alleged. Now, that being said, and along with some of the shit that's happened over there, I do keep up with some of my coworkers. There's at least 3 or 4 of them that I've kept up with to this day. Actually, I'm with one of them myself. Her and I are in a relationship now, which is kind of funny to think about considering that we've only known each other barely for the first year, and then up until the past year, we've actually become friends and we made it official around like 2 months ago. So that's pretty cool. With those people in question, I play games with kind of on the regular, at least weekly. And with a few others, I have the very much respect and do want to do more with them. And one of which I even consider a little brother of mine. Like, we've gone to the theater at least once a year so far. We play games every now and again. We know a lot about each other, and we kind of respect each other to a certain degree that we don't keep up with the rest, with exceptions, of course. Now, how is it like since? Because that might be the question that is on everybody's mind when it comes to a place that they've worked at for some time. From what I've seen, there's at least a few other people that are a bit older that are getting hired there now, which I would hope, because I don't want teenagers, especially if they're still in high school, to be working up until 3:30 in the fucking morning. I think it's safe to say that that shit is wrong. And especially if you're going to be talking to these teenagers and hiring them, do not be surprised if they're going to get pissed off at the fact that they had to close, because one of the requirements for working night shifts is you had to open or close at least once. And there was one single exception to that entire rule, and she stayed there for substantially more time than she should have, which was really upsetting, because if you're going to be enforcing this mandate on everyone else and have somebody as an exception, then why is she hired in the first place? I get that certain people can only work certain times, but if she can't keep up with everything that we have to do, not just a few of it, then she has to leave. She's just holding on to a position that somebody else can work and is more capable of working potentially. But that's besides the points now. From what I hear, naturally, given the schedule that's been updated, hours are pretty bad. But I'm not surprised either. Once again, for context, the store would open at around 10 in the morning and would close at 12 a.m. That was when I first got hired. Now they open up at 9 in the morning and they don't close until 3:30 once again. And it sucks because people that worked mornings could work at least 3 hours of prep time, and that got down to 2. So in that case, and this is frankly my opinion, but an opinion that's shared by many, the general manager has no reason to be surprised if shit does not get done. Because not just that with terms of having shorter time with that, but there was also times where there would be an unloading truck every now and again. It would be Thursdays or the weekends. And we would have to be unloading it ourselves at points. Not just that, but he'd be constantly cracking the whip at us and telling us, hey, you gotta hurry up. That general manager has also got some shit as well, and I'm gonna get into that in a second actually. But I'm just gonna touch up on one thing in particular that could raise red flags. But even still, if you're gonna crack a whip at the horse to no end, don't expect to be surprised if that horse fucking dies. Now, into the general manager briefly. Of course, there was some level of favoritism strewn throughout. He also expected way too much from the managers and even more so from the coworkers that I had. And not just that, but there was also a period in time when he would chase around managers below him with a fucking kitchen knife. And apparently the higher ups got on his ass about it, and he hasn't done that since, or at least to my knowledge. It's still pretty fucked up, and I'm pretty sure he could have gotten arrested for that, but whatever. Whatever works for everybody else, I guess. And yeah, it was just an odd time. And from what I've heard, also there's going to be an expansion on the rise. I don't know if I can discuss it. I might have hinted at it briefly, but even still, that's all alleged in my book. It was just in the talks. I don't know if anything's been done yet or if it will be done. So I can't really just confirm it outright. Now, with that, of course, we've gotten into the retrospective area. How is it like with the current job that I have now? It is a lot better. It is much better, actually. The hours are generous. You can choose to work later if you want to. The latest that I have to stay there is 11 p.m. Well, the latest that we're scheduled is 10:30 p.m. I don't go in killing myself. I don't go in wanting to kill myself. And it's just generally much nicer. There is still that tad bit of drama, but it's from a station that I don't go to frequently, and I do not care enough to look into that kind of drama unless I've already known about it. And everybody in the crew is generous at worst and really friendly at best. Like, everybody's so supportive of each other. Everybody wants to get the job done. And we're all just here having a happy, jolly time. Not just that, but I have fucking breaks now. You hear that, general manager? I have 3 breaks. 3 hours in, I have a 15-minute break that's paid for. 5 hours in, I have a 30-minute break for lunch that is, I have to clock out for. And then my last paid break, which is 15 minutes, is at, God, I'm trying to do the math right now because I'm stupid. 6 hours and 45 minutes in. I need to say that specifically because that's just the cycle that it goes. So me clocking in at 2 p.m. First break is at 5, then 7, and then I finish off at 8:45 for my last break before taking care of the last few hours of my shift. Not just that, but the benefits seem pretty good. They're very supportive in general. The managers don't play favorites necessarily, and if they do, it's only in terms of discussing personality and work ethic, nothing more. Because there is no like on the table or under the table sort of deal happening. It's just generally pretty nice over there and fair for the most part. And it's just much better. It was a breath of fresh air when I got hired over there. You can tell I was pretty confused when I was told to take my break. Not just told, demanded to take my break. And you can probably tell that the bags in my eyes are from all the time that I've had working at Cane's. Or just fast food in general. So I'd say I have it better off, but that doesn't mean that other people have it better off too. I did pick up a friend of mine after he had some shit happen over there at the job that we were once in. He's working with me now, thankfully. And, you know, he's getting back on his feet, or he's got, if he hasn't already. And we're still chilling every now and again, but even still, it was nice to see that we both managed to go better off without him. And it just makes me lament the fact that other people don't have it as fortunate. I was lucky enough because I have a certain connection with the place that got me the job in the first place. Not just that, but I think I've proven myself enough to maintain my position over there and get the hours that I need when necessary. But that doesn't mean that other people that I've worked with before are in a position that's as good as mine. Far from it, in fact. And it genuinely breaks my heart sometimes that the people that I know and I respect are still over there and possibly getting worked to death. It sucks. And to anybody that is watching, for whatever reason, I do genuinely hope you get a better spot. I hope that you get to start fresh and start better. And not just that, but you get to have longer nights in terms of sleep, because we all need that, frankly. It's really hard getting sleep once you become an adult. When you're a kid, it's a choice. When you're an adult, it's not. And I do hope that it becomes more of a choice for you in the future. But still, that's my whole spiel. I've talked way longer than I thought I would, but hey, for some of you there that are fucking TikTok brain rots, I've decided to put this in front of you the whole time. I don't even know what I'm showing off right now, but I do hope that you've managed to find a bit of information. Do I recommend fast food? Again, if you can choose between fast food and working, I don't know, a major supermarket, I would highly recommend working a major supermarket, or just a major market in general, or just a spot that pays better. But if you are going to work in fast food, I'll preface it by saying this. You will be under pressure. You might feel like you are underrepresented or under-respected at points. But you just got to push through and build up what you can before making a decision on where you're going to go next. Because a lot of the discussions that I've had here, especially in terms of what I can do myself, I've used in order to get footnotes and solidify my position that I'm in now. And I'm all the more grateful for the fact that I'm in a better job now. Now, does that mean that fast food will die out? I don't know. Chances are no, because there will still be people that are needed from time to time. But I think that so long as there's a demand or people that are seeking that, there are going to be people that will hire and get hired. So, we'll see. But thank you for listening to my long spiel. I understand that there's been a short amount of stuff that I've been doing lately, and I've been pretty scarce. Frankly, I'm just waiting for Battlefield 6 to drop. And really, that's the only thing that I can look forward to at this moment in time. That and finishing off the Helldivers Halo ODST Warbond, but I have to get my ass on that pretty soon. Maybe I will. But yeah, that's about it. Well, I had to pop this in here because it's something that I had to touch up on just before I finished the video, and besides with this whole rambling, I thought it'd be worth pointing out that I had some really good people over there. I've said it a few times, but I figured that I would say it again here. So to the people that I've worked with before and the people that I've gotten along with really well, thank you for making it like really easy to work there, and not just that, but being cool enough to where we could not only synergize but also get along just fine and even keep up to this day. Like some of you, I've been able to play games, I've been able to just catch up on stuff that's going on with our lives, and I think it'd be cool. And of course, to my manager, you can and furthermore, I believe you can hope things are going well though.